honest. But that in that week long cruise or trip, it's like they've done 3 months together on land because you're like with each other 24/7. And you have that, you get an opportunity for that intimacy on an emotional level that you probably wouldn't have, on land in between all of the other things that we're doing and juggling. So it was really interesting. And I mean, I knew by the end that they had fallen in love. It looked very clear to me. They really went fast though. That's my fastest track that I've ever seen. And they were actually at our house, at our lake house just last month or so. We're still very close. So it's very cool to see that, to witness that. But it's like fast forwarding.
Right.
When you're on a closed environment like that, you're going to the same ports and you get to see people again.
Where is a place? I think sometimes people are scared to go to certain destinations because they're too romantic and they don't want to see other couples out there. They don't necessarily want to go to Paris by themselves. I go to Paris by myself because I used to live in Paris as a kid, so I know it very well. It feels
That's
like
cool.
home to me. But where's a place that a solo traveler probably wouldn't have thought of that you're like, you know what, people should think about going here?
Okay. Well, first I want to say you should lead our Paris trip first. For when we do a Paris trip for singles, you're leading it.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
That sounds great. We're always looking for good lead hosts. One of the places I guess I would say that would be surprising. All of Europe, the Med, that Greek Isles, Italian run.
Croatia's
that's
a hot spot.
Yeah, that's very cool too. I love Croatia. But that cruise hits all of those little islands. And again, cruises are just a taster, right? But I do like them for the singles and the solos because you can pop in, pop out. There's so much to do. You're not captive. Like sometimes even the resorts feel a little bit like redundant, after a couple days because there's only so many things. But on a cruise, you're in, you're out, you're at a port. You've got tons of different bars, restaurants, things to do.
Right. And cruises have some work to do to both logistically and governmentally to get their swerve back
That's
and get
a whole
people.
different podcast.
That being said, I think it's probably the safest time in the history of cruises to go on a cruise.
Yeah, I would say as far as cleanliness wise, except there is no cleaner place. There never really has been a cleaner place and a place that has more testing protocols in place than a cruise ship. And anyone that says the word petri dish, I'm like, oh my gosh. They go, cruise ships are a petri dish. I'm like, stop saying that. Just stop saying that. It's not true. Your restaurant, your resort, your bathroom.
Is the issue that on a cruise
Airports.
sometimes one person gets sick and a bunch of people do get sick? Why do they get that reputation?
Because they are tested. They don't test anywhere else. One person gets sick at the resort or hotel, everybody else gets sick too. Same thing at the airport, but nobody's holding them, confining them, and testing them.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're in fact, if anything, they're getting more sick in those places. But yet, because the cruise ship they're so compliant. First of all, they do whatever they can do to help, to help the guest. So they're under that microscope, that scrutiny. I remember like USPH coming on board, and like if there wasn't cellophane over every lemon, they would get like deducted points. I mean, they slave over every corner, being like you could eat off every corner of the ship.
Right. I mean, I say that about airplanes now. There's never been a cleaner, safer time to fly than right now.
That is true. I'm so happy the bathrons, finally, they can clean the bathrooms somehow. That's happened.
They really are taking care of it or whatever.
I don't know why this took so long.
Where's a place that you've been to 100 countries?
I've been to almost 100 countries. I've got 2,500 days at sea because I lived on board for so long, and I've sailed with I've hosted over 100 singles and solo trips.
What is the longest you have been at sea?
Oh, a year.
A year?
Yeah, I did 2 back-to-back contracts.
Wow.
Yeah.
What if you run out of something?
Well, that's a great question. They have import. We always run to Walmart. Thankfully, we're pretty industrial now. So one of the more popular ports, your turnaround port, we generally have a Walmart or a Kmart or something like that. And it's very glamorous. We all end up there.
Yeah.
Even the captain ends up at Kmart.
But where's a place that like I didn't think I would want to go here and it just thrilled me?
Okay,
Is there a place like that?
Well,
is that like picking a favorite child?
Yeah, no, it's not just that. There's that question that gets asked a lot, and I don't mean to be on the fence with it, but I have to say, first of all, I really feel like there is something cool in almost every port, and especially with cruising, you can't tell me if you've been there a few times that you really know it because you have to get off and really roam.
Right.
And
the layover doesn't count.
Right, exactly. It's like being in an airport. Bora Bora is always top of the list of romantic places. And I do tell people I would really wait to go till you're in love, only because it accentuates
place, right?
it. Like
Bora Bora does?
Yes,
That's
it
somewhere in the
accentuates
Pacific?
it. Yes, it's like a little place in the Pacific. Bora Bora, Tahiti, French Polynesia area. Mm-hmm. That is pretty magical. I mean, it's like untainted paradise, and it's the place with all of the huts that are in the water that you can see the fish at your feet. It's crazy. That's wild. That place is amazing. I would say, a well-known place, but everybody really does deserve to get there. Santorini is, I think it's God's vacationing
Really?
home. I really do. Santorini is it's just mesmerizingly beautiful. And the way they've all culturally created the spaces, it's just fantastic.
We have a very popular podcast apparently in Malta, so I'm gonna have to cruise.
That is
there.
One of the places to retire. That's like the number one retiree place.
I'm coming, Malta.
Yeah,
I'm coming. I know somebody went on a cruise. They were dating. It wasn't that far into the relationship. He asked her to go on a cruise. They went. She had never been on any kind of boat before. She got so seasick.
Rare.
How common is that?
Rare.
Can somebody who's traveled a lot?
So cruising generally, it's very rare to get
because it's such a big
seasick
boat.
Because it's so big. Yeah, it's not very rocky unless you're doing one of those Hawaii runs where you're doing from California. It's like 5 days out on the Pacific Ocean and then 5 days back. That's a rough run. I don't recommend
Hawaii run.
The Hawaii run. Yeah,
I did. Sounds nice.
Yeah, the 6 months. Actually, it was we called it the newlyweds and nearly deads.
Yeah,
that was
right.
the inside term. But honestly, no newlyweds. Only a few. It was mostly people. That was one of the most shocking revelations in my young youth. It was about 25, 26. I did 6 months out there. And I was like, it was sad because I noticed the majority of the people were waiting until the end of their lives. They had saved and saved and saved to go to Hawaii. And at the end, no one was comfortable. They were elderly and in shape that they were not in bad shape, but they didn't like the food. They didn't like the way the bed was. They didn't like how rocky it was. They weren't able to get on the tenders. It was just so many things that were influencing it in a negative way, where I said to myself at age 24, don't wait to travel.
Right.
Because they couldn't enjoy it. It was really sad to watch, people that had literally their life, they waited their whole life.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, rawr, and it was not good. And so Hawaii was one of those interesting revelations of...
Could you date the passengers?
Yeah, it's another question that I think that's a different podcast, because that could go on and on.
What are the rules?
Well, there are rules on that. So I do want to go back to that Hawaii thing, though. As far as seasick goes, most people do not get seasick on a cruise ship. And just get some Dramamine and the patches and green apples and saltines in your tummy all the time. It seems to do it.
Suck it up, though.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Okay, rules on dating the passengers. Now, my husband, who I met on a cruise ship,
right.
Not on a singles trip, but he was the butler. The butler did it. And he did work on the Pacific Princess, which was what the Love Boat was based on. Anyway, he was told the same rules I was, but had a very different experience. So for me, you're not allowed to date the passengers. However, no man on, at least at that time on this cruise line, really came on unless he came on with his mom, who paid for his trip. Oh, yeah. So there was no single guys there. So this was kind of a moot point. Plus, most of the crew are men. So, and women, I mean, we got on board and I literally heard the guy go, "Fresh meat." And I was like, what is he talking about? He's like, "You." I'm like, "Oh," yeah. I had no idea how cute. Anyway, my husband, on the other hand, hypothetically speaking, might have met a lot of single women, and as long as you back then could get away with it, because there was no cameras back then. Now Big Brother's watching everything. But I would say I had also a couple colleagues that were very good looking guys in the cruise director area, and I would see that door to the passenger thing fly open, and that was not a crew member that left. So it wasn't done. It was done.
So it's possible.
It is possible.
All right, I know you're on the clock here because you have to go cruising somewhere, I suppose. A piece of advice then, or a couple of pieces of advice, that if somebody's like, you know what, I've been locked up for a year.
Yeah.
I have a sense of adventure about me. Where should I go? How do I go about finding
Yeah, well, you should message me. Go to Solo Travel Expert on basically any of the platforms, any of the social platforms, and or Shelby Frenette, and I'll let you know. We have a ton of fun stuff coming up for solos, but just message me directly. It's really, your questions are always going to be so specific, because everyone has a different question on what's going on and what their concerns are. And I'm really happy to help. We have a company, travelfund.biz, that we help singles and solos do group trips. I would say one of my recommendations this year would be to open your mind up to river cruising, because it's like a lot smaller. And so you're not getting that, you don't have to worry so much about anything happening in a big capacity and your ship being held up or anything like that.
People love those.
They're amazing.
And they love Alaska cruises.
Yes, and Alaska is fun too, and they have opened up from COVID, so that's on the board. But just message me. But open up to river cruises, because it's the new hot way to actually feel like you're yachting, but yet you don't have to pay the yachting price. You pay more than cruising, because it's not at all like cruising. It's like your own private yacht, and you're just hopping off and hopping on.
Put that in your dating profile, people. It's like yachting, but you don't have to pay the yachting price. It's a good way to get attention. You were delightful. I have a million more questions. We're going to have you back when you're not so busy. As far as us, like, share, subscribe, and please, as always, review this podcast. Your reviews mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem. Check out our live tour schedule, live shows. Our next show, by the time you listen to this one, City Winery, Boston, Massachusetts, October 21st. Shoot us an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com, if you have questions for me, or Shelby will pass them along. Because, as always, at the Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great